welcome back to the deep dive. For most of us, retirement planning is, well, it's a deeply personal thing. We think about my contributions, what are my mutual funds, how big will my nest egg be? But today, we are completely flipping the viewpoint.
We are. We're stepping out of the individual member's shoes and into the perspective of the organization that's actually offering the plan.
The sponsor.
The sponsor. Because when you look at the source documents, it becomes so clear, so fast, that the sponsor, usually the employer, is the real client in this whole financial ecosystem.
Okay, let's unpack that. Our sources today give us a really detailed look into the nuts and bolts of group plans.
And they reveal just how serious of an undertaking this is for a company.
Yeah, we're talking about massive financial and administrative obligations. This is not just some casual employee benefit.
It's way more than a perk. I mean, it's a foundational piece of their long-term strategy. The sponsor takes on these, considerable costs for a tangible reward, reduced employee turnover, higher loyalty, and a much, much stronger ability to attract top talent. It's an investment in a stable workforce.
So our mission today is to look at the architecture from the sponsor's point of view. We'll detail the key players, the regulatory environment, which in our sources is specifically Canadian, but the principles really apply globally.
And how the money flows, and a concept that can mean the difference between keeping or losing thousands of dollars.
Vesting.
Vesting.
So when a company decides to offer a plan, what structures do they even have to put in place? Where do they start?
They start by setting up the entire ecosystem. It really rests on 4 main pillars.
Okay.
You have the sponsor, the administrator, the members, that's the employees, and then the insurer or financial institution holding the assets.
And everything kicks off with the sponsor, right? Establishing and registering the plan.
Exactly. Our sources really emphasize that if it's a registered pension plan, an RPP here in Canada, it has to be registered with the Canada Revenue Agency, the CRA, and the right provincial authorities.
That sounds like a massive compliance job.
It truly is. This is why we say it's not a decision that's undertaken lightly. And what's really important for you, the listener, to get about that CRA registration is how it creates a kind of ceiling on your tax-sheltered savings.
I was fascinated by this. The money going into the company plan, the RPP contribution, it actually reduces what you can put into your own personal RRSP.
Think of it like a bucket. The government only allows you one maximum-sized, tax-advantaged bucket for retirement savings.
Right.
When your employer contributes to an RPP for you, that fills up part of your bucket, which, leaves less room for your personal RRSP contributions. It's the government's way of making sure the total tax-deferred amount stays consistent for everyone.
And as the architect, the sponsor's duties are pretty big. They design the whole plan, set the benefits, and they're on the hook for all this complex reporting.
Right, including potentially very expensive things like external auditors' reports or detailed actuarial reports, especially for defined benefit plans.
That's a huge responsibility.
It is, and just a little regulatory wrinkle here. Most plans fall under provincial rules, but if the sponsor is in a federally regulated industry...
Like banking or telecom.
Exactly. Banking, telecommunications, interprovincial transport. Then the plan is federally regulated. It simplifies the compliance a bit, but the core duty is the same. The sponsor has to financially guarantee and manage the whole structure.
So given the sponsor is the architect and the compliance officer, let's talk dollars and cents. How deep does their financial commitment actually go?
Our sources break it down into 2 main funding models.
Okay.
You've got contributory plans and non-contributory plans. Contributory is the one you see most often. It's where both the sponsor and the member, the employee, put money in.
So things like defined benefit or defined contribution plans, group RRSPs.
That's it. And the detail a lot of people miss is that those contributions are deducted from your pay before income tax is calculated.
Which is a major incentive to join in.
It really is. Now, the other side of that coin is the non-contributory plan. That's where the sponsor alone funds the benefit.
So the employee doesn't have to contribute at all.
Not a cent. A classic example would be a deferred profit sharing plan, or a DPSP.
This is where it gets really interesting, I think, from a strategic HR perspective. The matching formulas.
Oh, absolutely. This is the sponsor's most powerful tool for engineering employee behavior.
They don't just cut a check.
No, they structure that check to maximize loyalty. They can use matching contributions dollar for dollar, maybe 50 cents on the dollar in some very strategic ways.
Tell us about those strategies. What are the loyalty mechanics?
Okay, so the first is tenure. They can structure the match so it actually increases over time. For instance, the company might match 50% for the first 5 years, and then jump to a 100% match after year 10. That creates this huge incentive to stay put. It cuts down on the costs of constantly hiring and training new people.
That makes perfect sense. The longer you stay, the better the reward.
The second strategy is rewarding based on value. They can vary the contribution for different types of employees.
So not everyone gets the same deal.
Right. Senior management or, say, high-value tech staff might get a much richer match than entry-level staff. It's about rewarding those scarce, critical skills.
So it's a strategic allocation of capital, not just a blanket benefit.
Exactly. And the third big strategy is all about the start of employment. Applying the match only after a defined waiting period.
Barrier to entry.
A deliberate one. It's designed to filter out people who might just be job hopping. It saves the sponsor the cost and the hassle of enrolling someone who's just going to leave in a few months anyway.
But I should note, these contribution strategies are powerful, but they are also generally flexible for the employer.
They are very flexible, unless they're locked in by a collective bargaining agreement or a specific contract.
I see.
Outside of those legal structures, yeah, the sponsor can adjust, reduce, or even stop matching contributions if, the economy turns sour. The control ultimately stays with them.
Speaking of control, this brings us to the concept that decides who actually owns all that money the sponsor contributed. Vesting. Explain that for us.
Vesting is the period where the sponsor's contributions are still conditional. If you leave your job during that vesting period,
You lose their money.
you only keep what you put in. The sponsor takes their share back.
But once that period is over, once you're fully vested, that conditional money becomes yours.
Immediately.
Right.
It becomes your property. It's yours to take with you when you go.
And how long is that period, typically?
It really varies by jurisdiction. Our sources mention that in Canada, it's often 2 years, but it can be immediate or even up to 3 years. It just depends on the provincial legislation for that specific plan.
And that length is a direct cost for the sponsor. I mean, a shorter vesting period must be way more expensive.
Oh, significantly. Because it means the company's investment walks out the door with the employee that much sooner. They take on more risk.
Let's use the example from the source material, the story of Natalie.
Okay, so Natalie starts her job September 1st. Her plan has a 6-month waiting period. So contributions, both hers and the employer's 100% match, don't even start until March 1st of the next year.
So contributions begin in March.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say her employer has a 1-year vesting period. That clock starts ticking in March.
Right. So if Natalie leaves the company at 11 months after that date, say in February of the next year, she only keeps the money she personally put in.
The employer takes the match back.
They keep the match. It's like a financial cliff edge for her.
That's a huge lesson. If she quits 1 day early, day 364, the employer keeps all of it.
But if she just wastes 1 more month, leaving at 13 months, she's fully vested. She walks away with her money and the employer's matched contributions.
That 1 month could be worth thousands of dollars.
This is why understanding your plan's specific waiting period and the vesting timeline is probably the single most important thing you can do to maximize the value of what your employer is offering.
So what happens to the money once an employee is vested and they do leave?
They have options. They can often transfer their vested savings to a new employer's plan if that plan accepts transfers.
And if not?
A very popular option is to transfer it all to a locked-in retirement account, a IRA.
The IRA gives them more control, doesn't it?
It gives them total independence. It removes them from the investment restrictions of the old group plan. It lets them choose their own investments, their own advisor. Basically, they take full charge of that pot of money.
Let's move on to the second major player in this structure, the plan administrator.
Right. The administrator is appointed by the sponsor. Sometimes the sponsor is the administrator, using their own HR or accounting department.
And our sources noted that in Quebec, for example, plans over a certain size have to have a dedicated pension committee as the administrator.
Yeah, but how they're appointed isn't really the headline. The headline is their fiduciary duty.
That's the critical, legally binding concept.
It is. The administrator must act honestly, in good faith, and always in the best interests of the members. They have to use the care, diligence, and skill of a cautious person managing someone else's property.
The source says they are legally obligated not to act solely in the employer's best interests. That sounds like A huge conflict of interest waiting to happen.
Well, that's the inherent tension of the role, and that's exactly why the legal framework is so strict.
To protect the member.
Precisely. The law recognizes that potential conflict, and it puts up the fiduciary duty as a shield for the member. They are legally accountable to the plan members first. If an administrator breaches that duty, say by making an investment choice that only helps the employer, they face significant personal and corporate liability.
So the law creates a separation of duty, even if the paycheck comes from the sponsor. What do they do day to day?
They're the operational heart of the whole thing. They handle all the financial and administrative duties.
Like what?
Well, creating a written statement of investment policy and sticking to it, ensuring compliance, managing all the documents, enrolling and withdrawing members, and communicating the plan benefits. They're the essential link between the rules, the money, and the employee.
And with all that involvement, the administrator must be sitting on a mountain of sensitive financial information.
That's right. They are privy to highly sensitive financial details about the group, plus all the individual account data. They have to follow strict privacy legislation. Keeping that data secure is one of their most important ongoing responsibilities.
Okay, let's finish up with transparency. The member's window into this whole regulated structure, that's the regular pension statement, right?
Exactly. The statement is your report card for the group plan. It'll detail the plan type, how much was deposited by everyone, the investment earnings, and your current balance.
And crucially, it shows how your money is allocated and the net return for that period.
It also gives you those personal details that are so key for planning. Your years of service, your projected pension, your normal retirement date, and who you've listed as your beneficiary.
But there's a crucial caveat here that every listener needs to remember.
There is. While those projections are essential estimates, they're based on information from the sponsor. The actual legally binding terms are all contained in the official plan bylaws.
So if there's ever a dispute, the bylaws are the final word.
The bylaws are the final word.
And when a member leaves, for whatever reason, the administrator has one last mandatory task.
They have to provide a comprehensive exit statement within a certain time frame.
And that exit statement is vital.
It's a full accounting of all the money in your account, your contributions, the employer's contributions, any transfers. It lays out your specific pension benefits, lists all your options for transfer or withdrawal, and critically, it tells you the deadline for making your choice.
And you don't want to miss that deadline.
Missing that deadline can make the whole transfer process much, much more complicated.
So what does this all mean? We started by shifting our focus to the sponsor, and I think we've uncovered that offering a group plan is a highly structured, heavily regulated, and massive financial commitment.
It really is a complete architectural project. It requires specialized knowledge of vesting rules, federal and provincial oversight, funding models, and appointing an administrator who has to navigate that tension of their fiduciary duty.
And all that complexity is designed for one primary goal.
To create employee loyalty and provide a stable, long-term benefit.
And for you, the individual member, understanding that architecture, especially your specific waiting periods, your contribution formulas, and above all, your vesting date, is the key to making sure you maximize the value of what your employer is investing in you.
Which brings us to our final thought for you to mull over. We've established that a shorter vesting period is more expensive for the sponsor, right? Because their investment leaves sooner.
Right.
So, how might a company's choice of a strict 2-year vesting provision versus, say, an immediate vesting provision signal its strategic outlook on employee retention? Is it valuing long-term commitment, or is it prioritizing short-term cost control?
That is a fascinating look into the strategy behind the systems that govern so much of our working lives. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.